and we left it at the place for the IBC. Not much time left for us, but for you, Barack, we've already seen camps for and against the BBI, even before we've seen the contents of the final report. So what would be the political implications thereafter, after the launch? What should we expect to see in the political space?
I think the process was politicized quite early in the day when some of the people who should have been talking least about what to expect were talking loudest. They started saying things like it's going to be about forming government. They started saying things like the architecture and design of this government is going to be as follows. And they started talking about who should occupy which office and who should not occupy which office. And therefore, whether we want it to or not, we are invariably going to be looking at this thing largely through the prisms of what the executive becomes. Whether we are going to have an executive prime minister, whether some of the powers that reside in the office of the president are going to be transferred in a new edifice in the form and context of the office of prime minister, whether we are going to have deputy prime ministers and what their roles are going to be. And then the question is going to become who among the most active politicians today on either side of the divide have been earmarked for those positions, and therefore lots of jostling, contestation is invariably going to take place.
Okay.
In the process,
yes.
I think we are likely to forget about the original in which was a flawed election.
Martin, that the stage has already been set, and with just barely 2 years to a general election, do we expect any alignments, political alignments and realignments around the BBI and thereafter?
Certainly, but I just wanted to speak a little bit on this IEBC issue.
Right.
I think that we have placed too much faith in an IEBC in a wrong way. If anything, we should be whittling down the IEBC from 9 commissioners to even about 3 or 4 or 5 max. Because we should build the institution behind IEBC, behind the elections, not commissioners, so that we bring in and take them out. Those guys are important, but they should be providing a different support system to our electoral system. We should build the capacity. I mean, big democracies like India do not have the kind of legis we have for an IEBC in Kenya. And they have 3 commissioners, and they run world's billion democracy. Now, back to where we are. Yes, with BBI, we certainly are going to see new formations. As a matter of fact, we are going to see some parties folding up and some parties forming up. And this time around, I take the view that we will see stronger coalitions, or coalitions right from the word go. If you recall, NASA was not a coalition, it was just an association of parties that came together. Jubilee was not a coalition, it was a merger of TNA and URP. Now we do have real coalitions coming up. We have people or parties that are going to have to come around and say we are about BBI or we are against BBI. And those will eventually, just like what the banana and orange produced, will eventually give us formations that will take us into the next dispensation.
So then once that happens, and we've seen the relationship between the president and his deputy deteriorate by the day, specifically speaking about how these 2 leaders have been handling each other of late. We saw what happened in Manyani the other day on the so-called protocol breach. Are we likely to see them fall completely apart, or would there be a miraculous saving the so-called marriage? Martin.
You know, the president is not running for office. The deputy is the one that's running for office. So if you asked me, it is the interest of the deputy to make sure that he can serve out his term and give his, expect his boss to give him a handshake and then leave him on the stage to continue to campaign. The boss can be so happy going away, feeling happy and not wanting to do anything, but he can also work out in such a way that he expects the boss to lend him a hand in the campaign and so on. But that said, people differ. I mean, presidents and their deputies differ. We've seen that. We saw that with Moi and his vice presidents. This is the first deputy president we've seen, and we've seen them differ with the president. But this time around, it's not easy for the president to take an action against him the way Moi did with Saitoti and others. But that said, I think there's still room for them to work together. They can disagree in the boardrooms, but when they come out in public, they should give us, some image that they are together, they are working together. Unfortunately, it is not working that way, and it's only polarizing the country.
Muluka, on the relationship between the president and his deputy and the likely implications as, of course, the deputy president continues to campaign for the 2022 election. So where we are now, do you expect that there will be any changes in behavior, perhaps?
I would normally expect that the two foremost leaders in the executive ought to be able to get together, to speak to one another, and to be able to reach a certain mutual understanding that then helps the country to move forward. But from where I have observed these things, there would appear to be some almost pathological fear within the ODM of any rapprochement between the deputy president and the deputy president. And therefore, that it seems to be healthy for the political pursuits of ODM that these two should be at odds at all times. Because we saw over the weekend that when some people suggested that the religious fraternity was trying to grope for possibilities of rapprochement between the two, that there were those who were very quick on stepping up to the plate and saying that these two should not be brought together. And I think that a polarity of that kind serves a certain political purpose. Sometimes in politics, it is important that there is an object of hate, and the more that object of hate is ridiculed, the more the other side seems to enjoy mileage. So I do not know just how honest the fraternity around the head of state and would like to see a ceasefire, silencing of the political guns, and they are coming together. But I think that it would be healthy for the country if they were somehow to get back to base. But that would take more than just the president and his deputy. It would also have to bring in the ODM fraternity, and which seems to have moved towards the president with a clear agenda. Okay. And that agenda is being served today in the divisiveness between the two.
I'd like to end it there, but I'll give you a few seconds, Martin, on this reconciliation, and what would be then the space for ODM leader Raila Odinga and President Uhuru Kenyatta's handshake as we move forward from this in very, very few seconds rather.
No, for me, if we were to have a handshake that brings Raila, Ruto, and the president, what a beautiful thing for the country, because in that what we're talking about, BBI, the building bridges. So it should not be a remote possibility. Rather, if it's about the country, then there should be no reason why Raila, Uhuru, and Ruto should not sit down and know that the country is looking up to them to lead it, to give it a sense of purpose, and to unite it, and to reduce the tempo, to reduce the temperatures around the politics, and give us a unified country.
Right. Thank you very much. We'll keep our eyes on this, and we'll continue this conversation if and when this final BBI report is launched sometime this week. Remember, Mashujaa Day will be held in Kisii on a Tuesday, so perhaps a lot quipping that this might happen in this particular function. We'll be keeping you up to date. That was Barak Muluka. And